Hello, hello. You are someone and I am someone else. Happy New Year. It is 2024 and I am going to be talking about the elections of the United States President. I love the United States. I live in Maryland, so I'd be voting for whoever the Maryland electors are, for the Libertarian Party. It's gonna be blatant, okay? I'm voting for the Libertarians. Doesn't matter what happens. They're probably gonna lose, but the Libertarians, I don't know who they're going to pick, but I will most likely vote for them because our government's absolutely out of control with the spending, the regulations. Most of our problems, 90% of the time, I blame capitalism for all the terribleness, all the profits. No, it's government control. I blame the pharmaceutical companies for all the profits. No, it's patents. You have a problem with patents. The reason why medicine's so expensive, guess what? They've limited competition. Only the people with the patents. What's another thing? Rent. Why is rent so expensive? It's because banks bribe the government to give them out more loans, and then more irresponsible homeowners have been buying up expensive real estate, and now they have to make a return on that money. Rent's gone up. And then the places that the places that have rent control, their units suck. Literally everything is involved with government. Literally everything. Minimum wage got up. Look, we lost another 5,000 jobs. Guess what? The real minimum wage is zero. If you increase minimum wage, there are people that get cut out of the job market. Government is the problem. It is not capitalism. I hate when people say that. So as a libertarian, I understand what the true problems are for the most part, or at least I believe I do. Because minimum wage causes job losses. You saw that in California. Literally, the week that they announced the minimum wage, there was 5,000 jobs that this went to different states. And literally people complained that they lost their job. They're like, my wage got increased. I don't have a job anymore. Turns out the real minimum wage is zero, huh? Isn't it? Yeah. This is why we're a bunch of idiots here in the United States. And it's only going to get worse. If people start believing in the lies, it's only going to get worse. Who's going to be the next president? I don't really care because it's going to suck anyway. It doesn't matter if it's Mr. Donald again or if it's Biden again. It doesn't matter. Because they do the same exact crap every single time. They increase the budget. Then they spend ridiculous amounts of money. We haven't had a small government president since Grover Cleveland. I'm not joking about that. Calvin Coolidge wasn't a small government. Ronald Reagan wasn't small. In fact, he increased military spending against the Soviet Union. Donald Trump wasn't a small government. Bush was not a small government guy. Nobody's a small government guy. If people would just look at the thing, the last small government president we've had, and that's really the only one I can think of, is Grover Cleveland. And he was a small Democrat. He wasn't even a Republican. He was the only president kind of actually worth voting for, honestly. All these other guys are all corrupt pieces of garbage. I mean, Donald's not corrupt necessarily. He's just a crazy person. So I like him more than Biden, but he's a crazy person. And he was also on the Jeffy Epi list, which they just released on Wednesday. His name was on the list. He claims no wrongdoing. But, we all know that Mr. Donald loves women. Just like Mr. Bill Clinton. So, anyway, that's, I generally think whoever is going to be president, I do think it will probably be Joe Biden or I've been seeing so many Joe Biden posts over Trump posts. So I guess I am. It's weird. I do look at a lot of Donald and Trump posts. So, I look at both sides of the argument and I'm just like, you guys are idiots. Both of you guys are idiots. You're not going to achieve half the time, like Donald said he was going to drain the swamp. He just replaced the swamp with his goons. As soon as he went off office, guess what Mr. Joey Biden did? He replaced with his goons. They didn't get rid of any of the government departments. They didn't get rid of the Department of Education. They didn't get rid of the Department of Labor. Well, they shouldn't merge the Department of Labor and the Department of Education together or get rid of those entirely because they're completely crappy and useless. They didn't get rid of Department of... what departments? Energy, I don't know. There's a bunch of departments we don't need. We have like 22 of them or whatever. It's ridiculous. Or however many we have, 19, 18 of them. I forgot honestly. And it's not explicitly said in the Constitution. This is cabinet or whatever, or members. I don't remember what it says in the Constitution exactly, the U.S. Constitution. But he has members of his cabinet, or we call it the cabinet now. I forgot what the Constitution explicitly says. But either way, like most of these agencies, FBI, we shouldn't even have. We shouldn't even really have federal laws. The only federal laws we should have are the 17 enumerated powers, which I think we've gone way beyond that now. Like, we need to reinterpret what those 17 enumerated powers are. The Supreme Court has said we're acting within the 17 enumerated powers of the Constitution. So, okay, Supreme Court, I disagree entirely, but if you think we are, okay. But that being said, I think the executive branch has gotten too big. And now he wants to get rid of loans on colleges. By the way, the president doesn't have the power of the purse. The Congress has the power of the purse, but he can sign executive orders moving the money around. Because they give him a lot of funding, he has a lot of room. So like Mr. Biden's like, oh, I'm gonna discharge everybody's student loans or whatever, right? But the Congress argues, no, he can't do that. We have to make a law saying he can do it. But he says, oh, I can sign an executive order saying I can do it. And then the Supreme Court's going to try and see if they can interpret it. And then, like, a bunch of people who are going to be paying taxes, our taxpayers, are going to probably do jury notification on it or whatever. So maybe there'll be another because, again, the last line of defense, the Constitution, is not the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court's not the last one who decides the Constitution. It's really the jury in any court case. Supreme Court, yes, but the jury in a court case, when they do jury notification, that is when they cite the Constitution and say that's unconstitutional. That is generally, those are the people that decide the Constitution. It's the people, not the Supreme Court. And I think that's something that we just seem to forget. The history of jury notification, after the 1950s, our government stopped educating people on it because they wanted more power. And now we barely have cases where jury notification. Our people don't even interpret the Constitution. They don't even read it anymore. They just say, okay, this is the crime. This is here's some evidence on what he did or what he didn't do. And then you basically decide his punishment, or you basically decide how guilty or not guilty he is. That's what jury does. I don't know exactly if the jury decides the punishment. I think that might be the judge. I'm not 100% sure. I know the judge and the jury interact with each other. But again, I'm not a big, I don't know much about the judicial system. I've never been on jury duty. You could tell I'm kind of young. I wasn't even alive during Bill Clinton's presidency. And he was like the last semi-good president we've had. He was he decreased spending of the government. He didn't get us any wars, but anytime a president goes into war is when they get reelected. I think that's the reason why Joe Biden might not get reelected. Honestly, he might actually lose the ticket, or he might lose the Democrat ticket, or he'll maintain it because he is kind of like a boring standard government Democrat. I don't like Democrats. I think that they're so status quo, or they're so big government that I'm like, no. AOC is too big government for me, or let's have workers' rights. But of course, you can't really have workers' rights. Even trade unions, they're not for workers, they're for trade unions. Think about it. Every time there are secret ballot elections saying we don't want trade unions. And the reason why is because trade unions are not for workers. They're for themselves. They're for trade unions. They're for their own power, their own gain. Just like the government. Everything's for their own gain. So like trade unions aren't going to increase you as an individual. They're going to increase the collective of whoever's in the trade union. So if you elect a trade union representative, right? You say, okay, do this thing, and then the trade union representative says, oh no, I want this money, do it, and you've agreed to be part of the union. Now you have to pay whatever fees that guy wants, and now he basically controls the funding. He controls how much money he makes. Trade unions are for their own powers, just like government, just like everything else. Everything's a hierarchy. I believe as a libertarian, I believe hierarchy is a natural form of nature. And the best way to get rid of a very, very centralized hierarchy is to break it up. Just like how the Constitution breaks it up into judicial, legislative, and executive, I believe it's even more pronounced in terms of businesses. If you get rid of patents, or at least make it only a 6-month thing instead of a 100-year thing or 20-year thing, you could actually promote scientific research, or maybe not even have patents at all. Because patents are a use of violence against other competing firms. That's really what they are. It's a government force. And I think most of the time, insurance. Another great example is the health insurance companies in the United States. Another great example of why government sucks so much. It's not the businesses that are a reason why insurances are so expensive. The reason why insurance is expensive is because, first off, they talk to the government. The insurance companies bribe them, whatever, right? They say, and for whatever reason, the government will place restrictions saying, oh, these doctors are a network, these doctors aren't. Back in the day, though, before 1965, and any insurance will do with any hospital. It was very flexible. You go across state borders, get that. Like, if I get sick in, like, a state like Virginia, my insurance doesn't pay for that. It only pays for things in Maryland. So why should there be 50 separate insurance plans for 50 separate states? Why can't my insurance go across state borders? Like, that's another thing. Like, there's so many different restrictions in the medical field. Another thing, the AMA, it's a trade union in an economic sense, not a traditional sense, but in an economic sense. Yes, they do advocate for their members to get higher pay, but it's interesting because they don't understand economics, because they also want cheaper healthcare for everybody. So I don't understand. Do you want to pay your doctors more, or you want cheaper healthcare? One or the other. You can't have both. But I think they've arguably want more expensive doctors, or they want doctors to have higher pay. They pretty much advocate for that. I mean, they're controlled by doctors. So, and the ADA has so much legislation, and they're a monopoly on licenses. They basically have got every single other firm can't get a medical license. Again, like, I don't know whether to break that up, or because I'm not a doctor. But if I was a doctor and I said I disagree with the AMA or whatever, I'd be like, okay, let's start a competing firm and then bribe Congress to do whatever. Although I just think it's terrible that you need to go through Congress to do anything, to be honest. Because does Congress have any medical licenses? Probably not. Maybe Ben Carson does, but he's the only representative I can think of that has a medical license. You know, I can't think of very many members of Congress that have medical licenses, that understand medicine fully, you know what I mean? Again, who will be the next president? It's probably going to be either Joey Biden or Donald Trump, or maybe even Ron DeSantis. It's not going to be a libertarian, most likely. Sad to say, I do love the ideal of getting rid of some of these... I really want to merge the Labor Department and the Education Department together. Cut out half the jobs. We don't need a Department of Education. We just don't. We need to trade these... We need these kids being trained for labor. And we need to stop them from... We need to really think, okay, here's the effects of trade unions. Because a lot of these kids are saying, okay, the only thing that, in my opinion, is worth my value is my job or labor. And we need to talk about why labor theory of value is wrong. Why trade unions, why they increase, they increase the wages for the people who have jobs. The people who don't have jobs, minimum wage is zero. Just like I said with minimum wage, same thing goes with trade unions. The real effect of wages is zero. And then, not only that, you cause every product to go expensive, like the auto labor unions, the steel labor unions, the coal labor unions. There's a reason why people won't work in those industries anymore in the United States. The unions took away those jobs, and of course the businesses went overseas for people who are willing to work for them for cheaper. And so, if you could produce something for cheaper, why not do it? And it makes the economy way more efficient. It makes our products way better. Because you can now focus on other things that you can efficiently do more than Americans, you know. Now we can focus on other things in the global economy that we don't have to worry about, the steel and the car manufacturing and all that stuff. We don't have to worry about that anymore. That's been offset by Japan and China. And now that Japan and China are focused on those, and now they're actually starting to get offset by African labor. They're starting to complain that their jobs are going overseas. But it's just the effect. It just happens. As soon as another country industrializes, now it's a service-based economy. All they have to focus now is their own people. They don't have to worry anymore. Like the wealth that Japan has created is incredible. It's incredible, and I am eternally grateful that we were able to, as a world, we're able to get a poor, impoverished island country as Japan, as wealthy as they are. South Korea. They were one of the poorest countries probably ever in the world. They suffered a giant war for 3 years, right? It's the North-South Korean War, right? The the Korean War, right? My great-grandfather fought in the Korean War. Now, South Korea is one of the richest countries you could ever want to live in. I mean, they're still 95% South Korean, but they were able to diversify their economy, or at least somewhat, make their economy so manufacturing based that they were able to manufacture things they would not even think possible 60 years ago. It's incredible. Some of the things that we've been able to do in our short time on this planet is incredible. And it's just, we need to really think about that instead of, and again, trade unions, the problem is, you increase the demand, or the cost of labor, right? Sure, those people that have jobs, it's great. But the people that don't have jobs, or not even in a trade union, could lose them. Or maybe they'll gain actually more of a footholding. If it's a job that's really needed in the United States anyway, they'll have more of a footholding than the trade union. Or the trade union will somehow nationalize or collectivize everybody in the industry, forcing everybody to pay dues. So, I mean, I think you should have a voluntary choice whether to join a trade union or not, right? Man, this video is going all over the place. I was supposed to talk about the president. I can't even do that. I'm talking about trade unions and the bad effects that they have. But anyway, supply and demand, right? You increase the demand of labor, or the cost of labor, right? I don't know how to do this in a chart. Cost of labor, but the supply of goods remains either the same or even lower now because of it. Now that the companies can't make as much with the amount of money they were able to before, now they're either going to go overseas or hire a totally different group of people, and they might even hire, people from countries like Hispanic countries. They might hire immigrants. They might hire other people. Like I would rather hire, in my opinion, someone from Venezuela who's willing to work hard, who suffered under a communist or socialist regime, over a Harvard graduate who's gotten pretty much everything handed to them. I mean, they worked hard to go into Harvard, but that's about it. And to be honest, I don't really care if you have a Harvard degree. I'd rather want someone who's willing to work hard. I don't even care if they speak English, really. I'll translate for them. I have a translator app. I can do whatever the heck I want, right? If I'm going to hire somebody, I'll hire anybody. I don't care what language you speak, right? I'm willing to learn your language, in fact. I don't care. I mean, I'm lazy. It's going to take me forever, and I don't really care, to be honest with you. But I'm willing to concede that I will learn, right? The average person's not willing to do that. And, but again, I think, we should really get a Puerto Rican guy in there. I want a Puerto Rican libertarian. That'd be the strangest combination because, Puerto Rico is known as being a big state government. But I would really love it if a Puerto Rican guy came in there speaking Spanish, talking about libertarian ethics, the non-aggressive principle, all this libertarian nonsense, right? And wins the presidency. I would absolutely love it. Although, the problem is he speaks Spanish, and most American, in fact, literally all American presidents, except for Thomas Jefferson, have never really spoken Spanish before. So that's going to suck. But we can get a Spanish-speaking president. That would get us in great relations with Cuba, with Venezuela, and convince those regimes to change over to our side. Because that's what we need. We need a Puerto Rican guy, somebody who's born here in the United States, who speaks Spanish, to go communicate with Cuba, talking about the human rights violations, talking about all this crap. Get the international community riled up to get rid of the regime in Cuba, make it into a beautiful tourist destination for Americans. Like with my visa or my passport, it's very hard for me to go to Cuba. I want to go to Cuba. So that would be a campaign promise for a Puerto Rican president. Anybody who's a Puerto Rican who understands English and Spanish, I think that would be perfect. If you don't understand English, run for president anyway. Who the freak cares? Who cares? I don't care. I'll vote for you. If you're gonna say, hey, I want to improve Cuba, I'm like, I want to release the trade embargo. I'm like, you've got my vote. I don't want to have a trade embargo with Cuba. I think that's the reason why Cubans are so spiteful of us. I don't want to have a trade embargo with communist countries, right? With socialist countries. I hate socialism, but let them fail anyway. Don't force our government on them. Just let them fail. Socialism's gonna fail anyway. Let him fail. But yes, that's my opinion on who's gonna be the president. It's either gonna be Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis. I would really love it if a libertarian or a Puerto Rican guy came in there and just riled things up. But I don't think that's gonna happen in the next 5 to 10 years. When my generation starts getting older, the Generation Z, the Zoomers, that's when we're starting to get some very interesting people. Similar to me, but like more talkative and more less dyspraxic than I am. Because I don't think people would trust me that much with the controls of the world. But yes, anyway, you are someone, I am someone else. Talking about who the next president of the United States will be. Goodbye.